Yes, another edition of BloodHorse Monday. It's a June 30th. We're almost in July, my goodness, edition of the program. Sean Collins, Louie, bro, hanging out with you. I'm up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis ahead of the Grade 3 Indiana Oaks and Derby this coming weekend, doing some work with the draw up here as well. Sean, welcome in. I know you'll be up here. This is always a fun day of racing.
Oh, yeah. I always look forward to Indiana Derby Day every year. It's one of my favorite race days to go to. I think we talked about that a little bit when we were up at Horseshoe Indianapolis back in May. It's just always a fun atmosphere. You always have a big crowd coming out, and it's nice to see kind of the smaller tracks have their day in the spotlight, which is what Indiana Derby Day is. I think this will be my fifth Indiana Derby now already. So I'm looking forward to that. I've been going each year since 2021. So can't wait for that. And it was nice to see that you and Frank made it without me last week, Louie.
Got through okay. A couple of really interesting pieces in there, by the way. John Kett joined us from the Breeders' Cup. We talked, Belmont and what the plans were and what the hopes were. And John went into this whole thing about on-track sight lines and all of the things that they're going to have for fans. And all I could think, Sean, was, oh my gosh, we're actually thinking about on-track fans. My goodness, what a concept in horse racing. It's so nice to hear.
We're actually wanting people to show up into the racetrack. That's pretty cool. That's about time.
I know. I'm sitting here in front of, they're getting set up for the second floor clubhouse here for Saturday. And I can already feel that energy they're going to have in here. Just a packed room, lots of noise, all those things. So yes, nice to see tracks going for a little more on track experience. But look, man, you were not on last week. Frank and I got to react Monday to the news that Wayne Lukas was going to be out of training. And now, of course, we get the news yesterday that unfortunately Mr. Lukas has passed away. And you and I sat down with him, and I posted that photo the Sunday before Preakness. Early morning, you said, hey, man, why don't you come on out? We'll try to make it work. And I am now, Sean, incredibly thankful to you because it was your suggestion, your idea that we go do that. And then we got to see him, Bob Baffert stopped by after that, and we got to, hang out with the two of them, those sorts of things. And we saw the post from Bob and all these things. What was your reaction when you got the news yesterday?
It was weird because it's like we knew it was coming after the announcement that he was retiring, and so it was kind of like just a whole week of really kind of just taking the time to think back on his career, think back on what the legacy he will end up having. The really cool thing for me yesterday at Churchill, after the news dropped, they played Steve Buttleman, the bugler, played my old Kentucky home to kind of honor him. But then it was neat seeing his assistants, Dallas Stewart and Mike Maker, end up winning two of the key stakes races on the day as well after that news, and hearing them kind of, tribute their wins to him. It was a sad day. I think we may have mentioned this when we were talking with him a couple weeks ago, but I unfortunately was not around for his real peak of dominance in the 90s. I was born a month after his last Kentucky Derby win, so I always said maybe I was the curse as to why he stopped.
I also blame you. Yes, that's right.
Yes, but I was, as somebody who grew up, kind of learning the history of the sport. And that was one of the main reasons why I fell in love with the sport. Obviously, Lukas was a huge part of that, and kind of recent history, and an opportunity for me to kind of see one of these legendary names still in person, still training. And, it was a blessing for me to be able to see him win the Preakness last year, to be there for Seize the Gray winning. When I was a tour guide at the Kentucky Derby Museum, seeing him out there every morning, seeing the general public that doesn't follow racing be like, oh my gosh, it's Wayne Lukas. And then have him come riding over on the pony and saying hello. It's experiences like that that, I'll always remember with him. And just how, me, a young kid just getting into the industry from a professional standpoint last year when I started here with BloodHorse, and him taking the time to answer my phone calls when I come into his office, always taking the time to answer my questions. That's something that, for somebody who's loved the history of the game, it was really cool for me to have those kind of experiences. That interview that we did with him last month, I'll never forget. That's probably, it turns out to be one of his last long
ones.
And I went back and I talked to him and I interviewed him for a story. I think it was like the Tuesday after the Belmont, something like that. And there may have been another interview with him after that. I haven't really seen any other. I never saw any quotes or stories really about him after I did that one up until he had stepped away from training. So it, for me, it's kind of an honor if I was the last person to kind of do an official interview with him. That is a big honor, but just being one of the last even is a huge honor for me. So I'll always cherish that. He had such a legendary career. It's been great. From my perspective, talking to people during the last week that knew him,
Yeah.
that knew him,
Oh, that's right.
and hearing, just how much of an impact he's had on different people. So it's sad news that he passed away, but it's one of those things where, we've really now have had a week to really celebrate everything that he brought to the game, which I think is pretty special.
I remember a very famous quote from Bear Bryant, and he said, "Retire, I'd croak in a week." And it is a remarkable thing now to think about Wayne Lukas, and I think all of us that ever got to even interact, even the way that we did, Sean, not in the inner circle, in the family, whatever else, but just being around him. I guarantee when he got the treatment options and they were like, "Hey, here's what we could do," and I'm sure he thought, hey, can I go to the barn? Can I go ride a pony? Like, can we go do horse racing stuff? And they said no. He's like, okay, I don't need treatment. Like, I'm good. Like, seriously, I think he just thought, no, this is my life. This is what I built. This is all I want to do. I don't want to do that. And there's nothing else that I think he ever wanted to do. I pointed out with Frank last week to open the show, the two men that you mentioned, and if you throw in Todd Pletcher, the four of those guys over $1 billion in purses.
Yeah.
So I want to point out, you would have to win the Stephen Foster 1,000 times to get to $1 billion. Okay. I mean, it's that kind of level. This is the kind of impact we're talking about on the sport. And, and Sean, and other sports that I get to talk about, on radio and whatever else, we talk about coaching trees and who's influenced by which coaches. There's nothing like that in horse racing. It starts and ends with Wayne Lukas. And even when you go through it, Baffert's not in his training tree.
No.
But he kind of is, right?
Yeah.
The motivation is there. The going, from quarter horse to thoroughbred is there. So it's just a small part. And obviously Baffert, not a small part of our game, but a small part of the Lukas legacy is, even though Baffert never directly worked for him as an assistant or something like that, he got a ton of motivation from him. He learned a lot about, frankly, when we think of Baffert, we think of the sunglasses and the hair and all the things with him, right? And that was Lukas in the 90s, right? That was Lukas in the 80s. He was Mr. Fashion. He was showing up with he tells that story, showed up in Arizona with the big silver bus and all the things. I mean, like, that's the good stuff, man. But the influence on the next generation of trainer, impossible to overstate with Wayne Lukas. And like you said, I'm sure had we met him 35 years ago, we would have a very different opinion of him, because by the time you and I really got to interact with him, he talked about Nick Juarez, he talked about Jaime Torres. Those are, oh, I'm the coach, I'm supposed to bring along the next guys and the next generation of jockeys, trainers, what have you. And I don't know if he was always like that. I got to imagine he had his go-to riders in the 90s, and you're winning derbies with the best riders. And it was interesting when you and I got to, I don't want to say parachute into his career, but be around him, and just a different altogether. So I've really enjoyed, especially like you said, all the stories people have told. Once in a while you'll get a flyer or a text, and someone has passed away, and they'll say, we're going to have a celebration of life.
Yeah.
Many times those are very sad occasions. I think with Wayne Lukas, we're actually going to get a legitimate celebration of life. And frankly, this whole week has been a celebration of life.
Yes.
And career and influence and all of the things. It has been in all of the melancholy. It's been a very fun week, frankly, that way, to hear the stories, to hear how much he's meant to people. And so, but I hate to, Johnny two sides here, but frankly, it's been sad for sure, because I'd love to cover him again. And, I had $5 on his 7-horse in the Foster, just in case. And, it would have been great to see that. But, just at the end of the day, the influence on the game, the number of people, like you said, who are, I don't want to call them casuals, but, maybe not around, watching every single weekend, that kind of stuff. Oh, it's Wayne Lukas. Oh my gosh. But his also stopping to go over and talk to people who are on tours. Cody Photo, who's do photography, who does all the stuff at Churchill Downs, is going to have a Wayne Lukas special. Have you heard about this?
I've not, no.
Okay. So if your horse wins and you're a trainer and you grab a little kid and bring him into the winner's circle, those pictures are free for everybody.
Wow. I
What a
like that.
great idea. But why does that exist? Because of the coach, right? And that's what we're getting at here. And that's why this is such a celebration of life, is that kind of thing where you get somebody like the coach who literally means it. And he's bringing along the younger generation over and over and over again, getting them excited about those things. So it's an irreplaceable loss. When we talk about one of one, certainly we're talking about a guy like him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The industry will never be the same without him, but man, we were lucky to have him for as long as we did, and the impacts that he had on the sport.
Yeah, it's like I said, impossible to measure. This is BloodHorse Monday. We're presented today by FanDuel. Go ahead and download the app right now. You can bet today with FanDuel Race, inclusive all the races here at Horseshoe Indianapolis, where I'm sitting today ahead of the Grade 3 Indiana Oaks and Grade 3 Indiana Derby. Those will be coming up on Sunday. 8 stakes on the card here on Saturday, Sean. Getting excited about that one. But you and I were at Churchill over the weekend. We now have the answer to the question, what was the most consequential race of the year? And the answer is the Grade 1 Churchill Downs on Derby Day at Churchill Downs, as Nisos and Bookham Dano and now Mindframe have exited and won graded stakes afterward. I don't want to call it a boring race, but the best horse won the race, Sean. Sometimes we're hoping for more theatrics and more fireworks in those kinds of races. But frankly, when the best horse is the best and your best closer is flying at the end, it's a great race. It just is.
Yeah. Well, even before the race, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't on the show last week, so I didn't get to talk about my excitement going into this.
Yeah.
But you look at the field that we had assembled for this race. It was, you have obviously the Breeders' Cup Classic winner, the Kentucky Derby winner, the Dubai World Cup winner, and then on top of that, you have Mindframe, you have First Mission, you have
Skippy, who's won like 6 graded stakes. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, you had this really good field. And I remember I was down at the entrance to the tunnel as they were walking in. Mystic Dan was leading the group into the paddock, and just like Mystic Dan turns, then Sierra Leone, then Mindframe, then First Mission, then Hit Show. And it was just, for me as a racing fan, it was just really cool. And I started feeling like a little bit of those butterflies that you feel in those big races. Just seeing them one after another going in, it really set up. There was this, just this amazing feeling in the paddock leading up to it, that we were about to see something special. And honestly, I think we did. Mindframe ran fantastic. He's really shown that he has developed a lot from, remember last year in the Belmont and the Haskell, where he was kind of all over the racetrack as they were coming down the stretch. He's really shown that he has grown a lot and is now one of the dominant forces. You had a really good bounce back race from Sierra Leone where he made that early move, looked like maybe he was going to flatten out, but then came back again. I know you had Brooke Smith on the show last week. Yeah. I talked to him after the race, and he feels confident that once we get back to 1.25 miles, he's going to be good to go. And that was exactly
that's how I would feel. I don't know how you feel any other way. I'm with you.
Yeah. But you had got exactly what you needed from him to prepare him for the rest of the year. First Mission, he usually isn't on the lead. He kind of got forced into that spot. He ran well. He battled Mystic Dan. He looked like he was going to make that run up the rail, and maybe he just caught horses that were, running a little bit better on that day. But all 4 of them, there was a certain point in the stretch where I think all 4 of them I thought had a shot to win it. So it was a thrilling race start to finish, and it really sets up for a tremendous second half of the year when we're looking at this classic division moving forward to the Breeders' Cup.
It's fun too, because we're getting different horses, different styles in that class, in that, we used to call it the handicap division, right? The older horses in that one. And it's fun because we're getting the different styles. We're getting those different kinds of runners. You get that Sierra Leone where they're begging for 10 furlongs. You got a Mindframe who runs a little bit more like in our 3-year-old division, a little more like journalism, right? That kind of style where he's stalking close, good late kick, those kinds of things. It is a fun group, and it is a very quality group. And so it is nice in a year, Sean, where I was essentially, I try not to be greedy with my horse racing. And I assumed the best division was going to be this older dirt male handicap division. Then we got this great Triple Crown with a bunch of very fine horses in it. Now we're going to get these summer derbies with a bunch of good 3-year-olds in it as well. Just the male side of things, it hasn't been this good in a long time, Sean, and I'm thrilled that it is, frankly.
I know it's both sides of the division too, the 3-year-olds and the older horses. It's an incredible group this year. I'm so happy we got so many of our top 3-year-olds from last year back, because we didn't see fierceness in this race. He's going to be a player in this division going forward. We didn't see White Abario in this division. He's going to be in this race, he's going to be a threat in this division going forward. So there's more horses out there. And then you throw sovereignty and journalism in on top of them at the end of the year. And the Breeders' Cup Classic is shaping up to be such a good race. So far, seems like everybody's staying healthy. Everybody's staying on the paths that they've been expecting to be on since the start of the year. So let's hope that that stays the case. And we end up getting this. If the field, the way it looks right now, if the field shows up for the Breeders' Cup Classic, everybody that we're expecting to, everybody that was here in the Stephen Foster, all the ones that we're expecting to kind of join them down the line, and the Whitney and races like that, I think it's safe to say we're going to have probably the greatest Breeders' Cup Classic field in history if everybody can stay healthy.
It's a big statement, but
I know I'm willing to make that statement though.
Yeah. But if everybody's healthy, I'm largely with you, man. It's going to be hard to beat that group of horses. Torpedo Anna wins on Saturday.
Speaking of horses that might end up in the Classic, apparently. Did you hear that comment?
That's such a Kenny McKeague thing to just scream at everybody. Yes, it is. But all right, let's go back before that. How well did she actually run, Sean?
It's interesting because I thought she ran very well. I remember I was standing with my friend Alex, and they hit the finish line. And the first thing after they hit the finish line, I turned to him and I said, that wasn't as impressive as I thought it should have been, but she got the job done. And I feel like that was kind of my reaction to her races in Oakland too. It was just, she got the job done. She knows how to win. And she always, outside of the La Troyenne, where now I'm a firm believer that issue going into the first turn was the problem, seeing her bounce back. But, outside of that one race, it's like sometimes she doesn't always kind of blow the doors off the competition, but she does what she needs to win. Now, to be fair, Brian really, I don't think, was asking her for much down the stretch. That was kind of my first impression of it. But at the same time, if she ended up out of this race going in against the boys in the Whitney, which they're not planning to do, but if they did, I'd still feel confident that she was going to have a chance to win, even though I wasn't too impressed with this win, because I think she just shows up and she runs and she tries to win every single time.
She reminds me a lot in that way of Idiomatic, where you would want to wring someone's neck because she would never pull away. It was always a half length win if she won, those sorts of things. She has kind of that feel to her where it's like you said, it's almost, I don't want to use the word workmanlike, but it's like she's doing the job rather than, ready to just absolutely blow people out of the water. I don't know how good that field was, Sean, and frankly, I don't care. At some point, winning grade 2 still matters. Dominating pretty easily matters. And so I don't know what to make of her going forward, but I do think she is half a pace slower than she was as a 3-year-old, maybe. And it allows the distaff division, if it is going to get better, to kind of catch up to her. Does a Lacar develop? Does Good Cheer get back on the work tab, etc.? Like, can we get some of those fillies up and ready for that kind of encounter? I don't want to diminish this win, because she just wins these races. And that, like, I voted for Idiomatic for older dirt female a couple of years ago because of what she did, and it was a very similar kind of outcome. So I don't know what I'm looking for here, or if I'm expecting too much from her. Is that possibly what it is? I simply don't know.
Well, I think it's part of just the reputation that she has. Is you expect when horses have that kind of reputation, you expect 10-length wins against a field like that. And I think she's just kind of, like you said, she's kind of just more workmanlike. And that was one of the things I talked to Brian Hernandez in the winner's circle after the race. And he said he is feeling that she is more mature this year. She's not, she's staying a little bit more focused when she's in the gate. She's not getting as distracted when she's getting in the gate. There was a couple times last year where it seemed like maybe she got off a half step slow and was able to overcome that. He said that seems to be gone. And he believes that she really is kind of at that point where she's knows exactly what the job is. And maybe it is just the fact, all right, I passed Royal Spa. That's it. Job's done. Here's the finish line. Gonna run to that, make sure nobody else gets me before now and then. And that's it. And, sometimes some of these great horses, that's all they need to do. Just get in front of the other horses. And from there, they'll just coast along to the wire, which is what she's been doing.
A really busy weekend at Churchill as they head over to Ellis Park for the summer. And of course, all of the 2-year-old racing there. But of course, we had the 4th race yesterday. And Sean, do you know the importance of the 4th race yesterday there at Churchill Downs?
I know I watched it. Now I got to remind myself what race was that. The maiden race, the 2-year-olds.
It is. Do you know the significance of that race?
I do not.
Okay,
Now I'm
so
trying to
it's something
remind myself.
absurd. Dazzle Dioro wins the race. Okay, Jose Ortiz in a
Yes,
stunning development at Churchill in the spring meet. Jose Ortiz won a race, and
shocking, right? He only did that 63 times.
by the way, I know I've mentioned it on this show, Sean. I would be hard pressed to think of someone who made a better professional decision in the middle of their career than Jose Ortiz going to Kentucky and New Orleans. I mean, it has been gangbusters for him. So good for him, good for his family, all the things. That race, the winner of that race, the first 6 furlong maiden special for 2-year-olds, has produced a graded stakes winner something like 6 or 7 years in a row.
Really? You should have told me that stat before the race. I would have. I mean,
Dazzle Dioro, who, by the way, ran the 6 furlongs in a sub 109, 108 and 3.
He looked really good. He did.
Holy bleep. Look for that horse in the Iroquois or something like that coming up here, or maybe on Ellis Park Juvenile Day, something like that, getting into the fall. All right, Sean's already smiling. I don't like this. Sean, cut it out. I know you're thinking Derby. You cut it out.
I know. I can't help it. It just happens. It just happens. I already,
talk about Dazzle Dioro. I'm trying to talk about 6 furlong races, not Derby you watch about.
Romeo wins the Bashford Manor. Xavier Perez tells me afterwards, we think he's going to be better going longer. And my mind immediately goes, oh, okay. We'll mark that down. I'll put that in my notes for the future here.
Man, oh man. All right. So we're going to talk to a bunch of people today. Racing Rachel will join us toward the back end of the episode. We'll talk to Gatewood Bell from Keeneland as well to get his updates on renovations, Breeders' Cup, all kinds of good things. Sales, of course, going on at Keeneland there. Mindframe is a Maryland bred, and they just wrapped up at Laurel Park. And Dan Illman is with us from the Maryland Jockey Club. He's even got a very, very awesome shirt on. So we let him into the show here, even though I don't want to. These are the nature of things. So we let Dan Illman in here. My guy, and you look like a man whose meet just ended. How are you, Dan?
My meet just ended. I'm tired. I'm grouchy. I'm hurting. And the last thing I needed after a 4-hour drive from Baltimore was to see you, Louie. Louie, you have a little dirt on the top of your lip. You all right?
Yeah, I appreciate you very much, Dan. It's nice to see you too. Congratulations on a great meet, man. How's the job? How's the meet? I mean, you had to have a blast, huh?
Love the job, love the meet. We had so much fun. We really had a wonderful Saturday afternoon with the DeFrancis Dash Day. I know we got hurt a little bit scratch-wise due to the situation with the quarantine up in New York, but it's always nice to see post time in Maryland. And when the reigning Maryland bred horse of the year comes on through for the big crowd, it was really nice to see. We saw some good performances. Johnny Velasquez made the trip down to Laurel, picked up a stakes victory as well for Linda Rice. In the St. Benedict's prep race, I believe.
There you go. The Dash Day handle was up 26% from last year. You saw a huge amount of increase on Tessio Day, these kinds of things as well. What's going on there, Dan? What do you think is contributing to that?
Well, I think we're trying to concentrate on these huge days. I think it's really nice to have one day that people can really look forward to, because right now we're not racing, as everyone knows, for the next few months. We'll be at Colonial Downs. We'll come back, and then we'll probably take a little bit of a hiatus towards the end of December and into January. So with the limited racing that we have right now, and we're hoping that changes and we trick this out and really have a huge schedule in 2026, we want to focus on these big days, whether it's early in the year, General George Day, and then Preakness Preview Day. We really want to push having our handicapping contest there with the win in your ins for the Preakness, being the Federico Tessio and the Weber City Miss. Of course, we have Preakness Day. Now we have DeFrancis Dash Day. And when we come back, all roads lead to Maryland Million, which is the day we celebrate our state breds.
Is there extra planned for Timonium, or should we expect a pretty typical Timonium meet by the time we come back from Colonial?
For me, Timonium is fun, cotton candy, corn dogs, and no gambling. Listen, I want people to bet on the races. You can't bet those races. The bull ring, I've never picked a winner at Timonium, and I'm going to give you people some handicapping advice for Laurel when you come back in the fall. When you see those Timonium lines, treat them like you treat the Kentucky Downs turf lines. Draw a line through them in your past performances like they never existed, like it was something that happened in a beautiful dream, because it has no relevance on what's going on down the road.
He is a beautiful dream. He's Dan Illman. He joins us from the Maryland Jockey Club.
I do have to say, I want to give some love to Timonium. I went there a couple years ago for the first time, I think 2023. I popped down for one of those race days. It was so much fun being down there with the fair right next to it, the backdrop there. So even if you're not betting the races, make sure you go and check it out if you're in the area.
Sean, you're absolutely right. I had such a great time last year at Timonium. You can't go wrong. There's always something going on. The racing is fun. If you love horse racing, you go right up to the paddock. It's so close. You get to see the horses. You get to talk to the horsemen. We're standing basically right on the apron watching the races. It is a lot of fun. You have to better beware.
There's something special though about both with Timonium and Charlestown are the two bull rings that I've been to. You know, the smaller tracks. Seeing like a 7 furlong sprint around 2 turns, I always think is it just when they run by you the first time. I just think it's so much fun. So such a great experience. But yeah, go ahead, Dan.
No, Sean. Speaking of Charlestown, that's where it looks like Post Time is heading next. What do you guys think about that?
Well, classic.
Charlestown Classic, $1 million. 3-turn mile and 1/8 for Post Time. You'd be thinking maybe Brittany would have him back up at Saratoga. You know, Post Time, he's a cantankerous, crabby, grumpy, nasty, mean horse. He's going to handle running under the lights with his running style coming from way off of the pace. That's going to be tough. But this girl, Brittany Russell, she seems to know what she's doing.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
That's going to be exciting, right? You know, Skippy Longstocking's probably going to be back there and try, what is it, 3-peat this year is going to be what he's trying to do in that race.
Well, he's 12 years old now, so it might be his 7th attempt. Yeah, right.
That's true. Well, Dan, one of the things I wanted to ask you here, you know, this is kind of a new era for Maryland starting off this year with the new Maryland Jockey Club. For some of our newer listeners who are maybe new to the sport, just kind of give us a run through on all the exciting things that are now different in Maryland kind of moving forward.
We want people to play and win with confidence at Laurel Park. We want to be known as the players' track. One of the first things I instituted when I came in as director of communications was to create a free handicapping guide online, laurelpark.com/picks. It is free. You go on and it's something for everyone. For a novice handicapper, there are top 3 picks. Then there's my full card analysis for the ultra novice handicapper. Then we have trainer stats that we pull out for the day. Then we have trip notes from Will Humphrey, a great former jockey who's working for In the Money podcast and In the Money Media. He provides trip notes detailed for the day. We've got horses to watch down the road that you can put on your stable mail, whether it be Daily Racing Form or Equibase. And we have lots more bias information. We want you to play and win with confidence. We want to give you handicapping information and treat this seriously. And I also just like to cover it like we're a racetrack. We're here. I'm giving out press releases every single day. It doesn't matter if our feature race is a stakes race or if it's a first level allowance. I think everything needs to be covered. I think the trainers, their story should get out. Every horse is a story, I've learned, Louie. Every single one, whether it's the $5,000 claimer or the grade 1 stakes winner, I want to tell that story to the folks and hopefully get some more eyeballs on the product. We have a quality product. It's very, very underrated.
And 12% takeout on the pick 5s, which we always love as well. That Charm City pick 5 contest. Any chance we see a repeat, a run back on Maryland Million Day?
I won't be surprised. I think everything's on the table. The handicappers have been very, very sharp. You know, we gave out, again, this is a free handicapping contest for people who aren't aware, where you have to pick the late pick 5 every single day. And the person with the most cumulative points or money at the end of the meet gets the big prize. But if you happen to pick the pick 5 cold, you get a $1,000 bonus. People have been picking the pick 5 cold left and right and robbing me. So I'm not sure we're going to have that out in the fall. I might have to make this a little bit more difficult, but make it the Chesapeake pick 6 jackpot wager.
A little pick 6. There we go. Yeah, a little ad there. I have suggested the Crab 5 as the pick 5. Any
Stay out of marketing. Stay out of marketing. Don't do that. Crab 5.
I feel like it's a good idea. Feels like a good idea. I'm not sure. Yeah, it might work out. How demolished is Pimlico at this point?
Well, Pimlico is in the hands of the construction company right now. They're doing pest control, so you would be not allowed onto the grounds. But at the end of the day, it's going to slowly start. We're going to have a little bit of a ceremony. The governor's all in. He's very, very excited about having a new Pimlico and really building out something worthy of the second jewel of racing's Triple Crown. We'll be having that ceremony probably in a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks time. And then the building process will begin. It will be a transition. It will be startling to people in Maryland to have a Preakness at Laurel Park. It's going to be strange for all of us to try to prepare for that. But then there's the light at the end of the tunnel, which is first day of Pimlico 2027 is just going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it for sure. And what did you want from Pimlico? What did you need for your office? Was there something you needed in the Dan Illman man cave, if you will?
Well, it's kind of odd, at Pimlico, most of our memorabilia went to the state or it went to the Baltimore Historical Society. So for the most part, I kept my hands off. There were so many treasures up at Laurel Park. I consider them all mine anyway because I see them every day. And that's the best part. I don't have to take them home. Like I tweeted out yesterday, I found an old scale sheet book at Laurel Park from 1942, and it had Whirl Away's program facing on the champion filly Vagrancy in the Washington Park Handicap. And you've got the handwritten notes. George Wolfe was aboard one of the horses in the race. And it really was, we had so many treasures that I hope to share with everyone on social media down the road from the Laurel Park press box. And during this break, one of my challenges, as well as updating the media guide, is to try to catalog everything. I'm really looking forward to it because we have newspaper clippings from the 1920s.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about you is the slow transition from DRF handicapper to librarian. I've been very impressed with. Yeah, no, it's been a really good move for you. Yeah,
it's a great career move, don't you think?
Welcome back to BloodHorse Monday with Dan Illman, Laurel Park librarian. It's been.
I haven't heard your best thoughts of the Preakness.
Crab 5 or whatever it is.
I've heard about your Preakness thoughts yet. I mean, we had a little bit of a race at Pimlico. By the way, the most bet on Preakness of all time, right?
Yeah.
That
was one of my favorite Preaknesses ever. Journalism was really impressive in that race. But Dan, what does a Preakness at Laurel Park look like? How are things starting to shape up and coming together?
Well, again, this is going to be a first production for the final year in 2026. So we'll be sitting down with all of them and discussing how this is going to work. It's going to have to be a scale back Preakness. We just don't have the seating and the accommodations there. If you've ever been to Laurel Park, it's not exactly ideal to get into. There's really one road in and one road out if we're not talking about the the backstretch entrance. So it's going to be a challenge. Certainly, we're going to have to work on a lot of different things. The ball is starting to get rolling. The good news is the news will be on the racetrack on the day.
Right.
We get good weather. We get good horses. We get a Kentucky Derby winner, maybe.
Hopefully.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe is probably the right word there.
But apparently it's going to be that winner of the 4th race at Churchill on Sunday, according to Louie.
That horse's half-brother was a nice horse. I saw him win a 4-claimer at Hastings, I think, a couple of years ago. He's a real nice horse. And Romeo, who's trained by Jerry Robb in Maryland, and we're all very, very proud to see him break the stakes record in the Bashford manner. He has as much chance of winning the Derby as I do.
Hey,
maybe the Saratoga Special?
Listen, you gotta look. You get the checks when you can get the checks, Dan. You know that. It's as we move forward in Maryland, and the move to Laurel, at least for a little while, with the Preakness and those different things, but then back to Baltimore.
Yes.
What is the sense amongst the horsemen? Is there excitement about the new? Because there's a lot going on, not just moving away from Laurel and back to the city of Baltimore for a majority of the race days. We're talking about taking summers off so that people can go to Colonial and there's not an overlap. All of the changes generally positive around Maryland, or is there consternation?
I think there's various opinions. I think you're going to have a lot of folks that are upset that we're not running. Personally, I'm kind of a little bit upset that we're not running. I know we'd be up against Saratoga, and I know we'd be up against Del Mar, but at the end of the day, we have a great product. We have a great turf course. We have full fields, and we have horses that fit these conditions. But I understand what we're doing. We only can run 120 days in 2025. And we have a nice partnership with Colonial Downs and the folks at Churchill Downs, where they're going to be running some Maryland-bred stakes races down at Colonial. And then later on in the fall, we'll have some Virginia-bred stakes races up at Laurel Park. And hopefully everybody can get to eat. At Pimlico, I think any change is worrying and causes a great amount of anxiety. We'll have to see how the Shamrock Farm Training Center turns out. We'll have to see how the new Pimlico turns out. There are going to be bumps in the road, of course. But I think at the end of the day, if Pimlico turns out as well as it is looking on the paper and the blueprints, I think it's going to be fine, and I think eventually we'll get the dates back. I think that's really what the horsemen are worried about, obviously. We want to have more dates and more opportunities to make money.
Yeah, that part I really understand. In Kentucky, we have various weird partnerships, like a Kentucky Downs preview day at Ellis.
I noticed that.
I love that kind of stuff. I'm a real sucker for it. Any chance we get like an Arlington Million preview at Laurel Park? Are these the kinds of things we're talking about as far as partnership?
No. But what I'm saying is this. There's been some internal talks to bring back a race that has such historical significance that it's going to bring some eyeballs back to Laurel Park, and it's the DC International. We'd like to bring that race back, and we'd like to make it what it was. International invites for horses from all over the world. I've got press clippings in the box from the 70s. You had horses coming in from Russia, from Japan before that was in vogue, from all over the place to run in the DC International. And we think we can raise the purse money, and that could be maybe part of a giant day down the road once we know our schedule and see how it's coming. It's funny, somewhere at Laurel Park, the original DC International trophy is housed. It's a really big thing. And I think that's going to be something that maybe you want to look forward to down the road.
Wait, you don't know where the trophy is? You just know
I
it's
know exactly what the trophy is. I'm not telling you.
Okay, got it. Not for public consumption, aka can't tell.
No.
Got it, right.
Go ahead and pre-print my press credential for that race. I will be there 100%.
You are there. Our press box is rowdy and raucous, though, however. Louie's been up there a couple of times, and he's been up there during the staid, quiet Pimlico. The national press is there. We actually have to behave ourselves, but up in the Laurel Park press box, anything goes.
I like that a lot better. There you go. That's good. Well, Dan Illman, Director of Communications, Maryland Jockey Club. You're back in New York, I see. I know that bookshelf anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? Because
the move, is the move is the big thing right now. I've got to get everything moved from up here down there, and it's several trips, and it's back and forth, and it's getting there. We're feeling good about it.
All right, well, good enough. He's Dan Illman. He's with the Maryland Jockey Club. Congratulations, and I mean it, on a great meet.
Congratulations. I'm pale, I'm old, I'm tired, and I look like a Nosferatu the vampire. Other than that, it's great.
I agree with Dan. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, my friends. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan Illman. Maryland Jockey Club. We appreciate him jumping on with us here on BloodHorse Monday. Who is doing that? Is that you, Sean? Are you doing that?
That is me. There we
go. All right, there we go. You leave Dan alone. You understand me. But there you go.
I trying to make sure you didn't have to hit the button. I was trying to hit the button for you.
I am sure you are like me. I don't know if you are to the extent that I am, but I adore my trip to Maryland in the spring every single year. It is lovely. They call it Charm City for a reason. I love all the things. I will miss you and I watched that last Preakness at Old Hilltop in the same spot on the that balcony outside of the press box, and I will miss that view. That was undefeated. The roof there, undefeated, all the things, but could not be more excited for what's going to be happening at Pimlico. And as Dan mentioned, I think an underrated part of this is you have a horse racing community that wants Pimlico better, and you have a governor and a mayor who want an urban renewal project like they want oxygen. And I'm not exaggerating. So I think those two things put together sets up a really good future for Pimlico.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's going to be, kind of the new start and next generation kind of thing for racing in the state. I've been liking every step of the plan so far. I think the last time I saw like design plans, I think for the building, I was a fan of those. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be weird seeing the race at Laurel next year, but I'm actually looking forward to that. I have not been to Laurel, but by the time we get to the Preakness next year, it'll be my first time back there in like 9 years. I haven't been there since I came out here for college, and I used to go there quite a few times with my dad when I was in high school. So I'm excited to get back to Laurel Park to see that again, and very excited for what Pimlico is going to hold in the future.
I saw how excited you guys about the international there. I like that.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's a race that we need more of, that kind of stuff. Those kind of international races throughout the year. I know the Breeders' Cup brings a lot of international horses over, and you see like maybe 1 or 2 horses coming over for like some of these grass races at Saratoga. Right. But we need to start spreading that love a little bit. We need to start having international horses shipping in for some of these other states for some of these other big races. That was a huge race back in the day, as Dan said. That was a very historic race, and to see that revived and then to see it kind of flourish into this new big event for us in the modern era would be huge. So I'm very excited for that. You can already put that in my schedule, whatever weekend it is, as long as it's not Triple Crown race weekend. I will be there for that race for sure.
Highest distinction, the last winner of that race in 2023 set piece the year before. So there you go. I'm fascinated moving forward with the stuff in Baltimore. I do think I think we forget, and you and I probably less, just because we go to Maryland every year. You can't like leave a city in that state without stepping on a horse farm. Like you just can't, right? And the other part is with Maryland that it's a really old circuit. Mid 1700s. I mean, we're talking predating, the nascence of states like Kentucky. Like Kentucky didn't exist when the Maryland Jockey Club came to be, right? And so this is, one of those circuits that we need to be doing well, and it looks like they're taking the steps toward that.
The historic value of the state, you go back to the early 1900s, the two main places where you kept your horses pretty much were New York and Maryland. Those were really the two major circuits. The number of tracks that were down there in Maryland, the number of horse farms that are set up down there. Yep. It's such an important historic area for the sport to be a part of, and to kind of see hopefully this renaissance of the state, the racing within the state over the next couple of years. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years we're back on that stage with them. That would be huge for everybody.
He mentioned post time going to the Charlestown Classic and trying 3 turns. I can't think of a worse idea than that.
You said that. Can we save this video clip and play it back when he wins?
Yeah, when he crushes Skippy by 6 legs or whatever. It just seems like not a great idea. But he mentions Brittany there. And obviously we had Mind Frame, the Maryland bred, come out a couple years ago, Knicks Go, that sort of thing. So it's not as though we're 100 years removed from this Maryland thing at all, right? I mean, these are super high level horses running in really, really high level stuff. So good to hear that their meet went so well, and that they were able to get so many of the pieces in place. Guys like Dan too, that are just lifers. He covered that circuit for the DRF and all that. It's good to see those folks picking up those circuits, because like he mentioned, there's just so many horsemen, different people that want that place to succeed. So it'll be interesting moving forward. For sure. So thanks to Dan Illman from the Maryland Jockey Club for joining us here on BloodHorse Monday. All right, last week we invited John Kett, the COO of Breeders' Cup, to join us here on BloodHorse Monday to talk about future sites. One of them is Keeneland Racecourse right there in Lexington, Kentucky, not too terribly far from the BloodHorse offices, of course. And so we're really glad to bring in Gatewood Bell from Keeneland. He's going to update us on all things Breeders' Cup, all things renovations, and of course, the sale coming up in September as well. So here's Gatewood Bell from Keeneland. All right, and last week we heard from Breeders' Cup themselves. Let's go to Keeneland now for Gatewood Bell. Joins us from Lexington. Really appreciate him jumping on BloodHorse Monday. Sean Collins, Louie, Rabaut hanging out with you. I'm live up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. A little different feel down there at Keeneland for sure. But Gatewood, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us here on BloodHorse.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Renovations underway. The Breeders' Cup announcement. Obviously, the sales season's going to kick up. It's gonna sneak up on us, Gatewood. It just is. It's how it goes every single year. It seems a lot going on at Keeneland right now. How is the renovation going?
Yeah, no, it's going great. I just walked through it an hour ago. Looks great. Paddock coming together nicely. Winter circle, and the building's gorgeous. So I'd say they'll have it ready for October meet, and we'll work out a few kinks and have it in prime condition for 2026 Breeders' Cup.
When you look at the Breeders' Cup and the expansion like this, just how much more will this kind of add towards the guest experience for such a big event like that?
Yeah, I think it'll be huge with all the temporary structures that they have to put in when they come here, compared to places like Santa Anita or Churchill that are obviously much bigger. I mean, we're adding just over 1,000 dedicated dining seats in those 4 new rooms, so that's a lot more premium seating, which the Breeders' Cup likes and those big events like. And it'll probably allow them to not have quite as many temporary structures. And the one that was over the paddock the last few years was really well received, and people really enjoyed being in there. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be new for everybody, but it's going to be very cool and fresh and nice.
Gatewood Bell with us from Keeneland. The Breeders' Cup announcement, you get the news that they're going to be heading there. They're going to be heading back to New York City the year after. What's the reaction at Keeneland? Honestly, are you going, oh man, we got a lot of work to do here? Or is there more excitement than trepidation? If you
I mean, I'd like to say, yeah, no, it's awesome. Like selfishly, I love it because I'm a big horse racing fan. Yeah, a lot of people, it is a lot more work, from our grounds crew to our, stable, running the stable, getting everybody fit in here, obviously with a big sale right afterwards, and a few days before it. Also, this year will be a first time for that. So there's a lot more moving parts, but it's kind of why we're all here. We just love everything that's horse racing, good for horse racing, and it's really exciting getting to have all the fans come in. They get to go tour farms and see bourbon tours and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a homecoming. Yeah, we probably didn't think it was going to be this quickly after the last one we had, but it's awesome. It's exciting going back to Keeneland with a new facility and then up to Belmont with a brand new facility. It's pretty exciting times for them. So
I want to put in perspective for maybe somebody who's listening to this that is new to the sport, but just exactly what Keeneland's going to go through next fall. You have the September yearling sale, one of the biggest sales in the world, in September, obviously. And then you'll have the fall meet right after that, then the Breeders' Cup. And then when the Breeders' Cup ends, you guys have your November sale right after that as well. Just what does it take for the great team there at Keeneland to kind of just do all that back to back to back to back and have the facility ready and just kind of keep on motoring through?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the sales being put together right now. So the guys have been out inspecting horses all summer, putting it together. There's a lot behind the scenes, but you're right. Once September starts, it is 3 months of just nonstop. You got the biggest horse sale in the entire world, the September sale. It's when all of our local farms and breeders, bring their stuff to market, and it's the one time they get to cash in basically on their crop, and everybody's excited about buying the next crop of great horses. And then you roll right into the October race meet, which is slam packed, awesome racing. And then right after that, you go right into the November sale. So it's very busy. And then when you put the Breeders' Cup in the middle of it, it makes it more of a buzz though. I mean, it's always great for the November sale. It's great for the September sale. It's great for our race meet. It ups the quality a lot. And then next year they're going to do the Breeders' Cup Championship sale the Wednesday before. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the paddock or in the sales pavilion, but it's going to be like a big party right before the Breeders' Cup, and like they did out at Del Mar this year. So that's going to be really exciting to host it at our, host it here.
Gatewood Bell from Keeneland with us here on BloodHorse Monday. When you think of Keeneland, you think of those shorter meets in the spring and fall for sure. And when we get to fall, we think of the double headers with football, of course, at the University of Kentucky. Looking forward to the fall meet. Any changes upcoming? We always get used to these Keeneland meets where they're very front loaded. It seems, of course, ahead of Derby weekend, ahead of that trip to Del Mar this year for Breeders' Cup. Any kind of changes to expect this fall?
Yeah, no, I mean, the mains one we tweaked a couple years ago. We moved and kind of backloaded some of because of exactly what you said. All those Breeders' Cup preps are for the most part on opening weekend. And we've tried to finish with a big bang and we've got 2 stakes on the closing Friday and 3 on closing Saturday. We added a couple new ones. And then you've got those races that might not have like a perfect niche for a Breeders' Cup category, like the 3-year-olds on the grass, like the Bryan Station, and then the older horses it's kind of prepping in for the Clark and races like that. So the front end's definitely geared towards Breeders' Cup preps, and then the back half of it is more geared towards Thanksgiving weekend at Churchill's races, or even up to like Cigar Mile Day and stuff like that.
Well, everybody always talks about how Keeneland is kind of this great venue for a race like the Breeders' Cup, just because of how important Lexington is to, the thoroughbred industry as a whole. They've had it 3 times now in recent years, 3 very memorable events, with American Pharoah winning the Classic the first time, the COVID year, and then Flightline winning the Classic. It seems like we always tend to roll out some of the best performances when it's at Keeneland in recent years. Have you guys been feeling that as well? Is there anything that you do as a track to kind of make sure that that's happening?
No, I mean, just like that's when they announced it, and I'm sitting here watching this year's Triple Crown, and like this year's 3-year-old crop looks like one of the best we've had in a long time. And just like crossing your fingers, maybe a few of these guys will stick around next year and get to duke it out in the Classic or something like that would be pretty awesome with this year's crop. But no, we're really excited. It's going to be awesome racing. It always is, and looking forward to it.
We'll get you out of here on this. And Sean mentioned it in the previous question. Breeders' Cup. You know, it's impossible to drive to Lexington and not pass every farm and everything else on the way in Gatewood. And do you get feedback from breeders enjoying having that weekend there as part of, you know, sort of that feeling around the October meet? Obviously, the sales going on, those sorts of things. Do you get a sense from them too?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's a huge part of what makes our meet so special, is that day in and day out on Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays, all the breeders are, you know, within a 20-minute drive or an hour drive. And you just get so many more of them showing up at the track, wishing everybody luck, congratulating them, cheering against them. And it's just like, there's so many more of your colleagues that you're working with that are here looking like for the final product, which is at the racetrack. And then I think for Breeders' Cup, having it here, it is a little bit special for them because it's in their backyard. They get to showcase it. You know, you get all your friends coming in from Europe and Australia and Japan and get to show off your farm and show off your stallions. And it's really good for the industry as a whole, I think.
September sale, of course, starts on the 8th of September. Fall meet will start on the 3rd of October this year. Well, Gatewood, congratulations on the Breeders' Cup announcement for sure. Sounds like renovations are going as well as they seem from the outside, at least when we were there in the spring. So that's great. So hopefully the timelines hold up, and we'll see you in October.
Yeah, come check it out in October for sure. Thank you all for having me.
All right, thanks, Gatewood. Appreciate you.
Gatewood
Bell from Keeneland joined us here on BloodHorse Monday. Really appreciate him being part of the program here. And Sean, you know, one of the best things about doing this show is we'll talk to a guy like Gatewood. We'll talk to a Dan Illman. We'll talk to a Racing Rachel. It's a nice reminder of all the things. I was thinking about this morning. I'm standing in the racing office up here, just how many people work at racetracks. There's just a stunning number of people. And then just all the time. That's exactly right. And the thought process about the renovation there and talking about being ready for more events like the Breeders' Cup. And then you hear Gatewood talk about that in terms of, you know, being surrounded by the breeders and having them, you know, at home at Keeneland. Essentially, you wonder if there isn't going to be more of an emphasis on Keeneland in the Breeders' Cup going forward, right? Because even he said, we're a little surprised to get it so quickly, but I'm wondering if we won't see Keeneland, even with a new Belmont, a new Pimlico, etc. I don't know what, twice a decade, maybe even 3 times a decade to moving forward with the Breeders' Cup.
I think so. The horsemen really seem to like it.
That's right.
In the winner's circle of the Wise Dan Stakes 2 days ago here at Churchill Downs, after Brilliant Birdie won the race, his owner and breeder, Richard Klein, we were asking him about what's next. He said, we're going to point for Kentucky Downs and then the races at Keeneland and then skip the Breeders' Cup this year. Why? Because they want to point to the one at Keeneland next year instead. And so he said that their goal is to win next year's Breeders' Cup Mile with Brilliant Birdie already. So they're already thinking ahead towards that race. They're wanting to make sure that he's going to be at his best to win the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland. You're going to see a lot of people that are breeding, that are owning, that are based here in Kentucky. They are going to put all their effort into winning, you know, races or these Breeders' Cup races at Keeneland. Right. Gatewood mentioned maybe hoping that some of these top 3-year-olds will stick around. You could see in the future, whether it be with this crop, whether it be in future crops, that where if that, you know, lure of a Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, where you would be able to win on the big stage in front of all the people with the mares, all the people that could potentially be giving you the stallion deals, all of them being right there and present for it. You could see where it maybe that keeps a 3-year-old around for a 4-year-old season to take a shot at a Breeders' Cup win at Keeneland. So it's definitely something that a lot of owners and breeders seem to love and is going to just keep making the product that much better going forward.
I don't know who's in charge of media at Keeneland as far as the Breeders' Cup and those things, but previously they set up these awesome tents at the top of the stretch, just past the finish line for media. And they gave us one in 2020, Gatewood, if you're there anywhere, if anybody's watching from Keeneland, I would love another one. That would be fantastic. So if we can get that together, I would love a tent at the next Breeders' Cup because I'm bougie. When I go to Keeneland, I want to be bougie. What do we do? I want to look at it. It's good. It's nice there. It's nice at Keeneland.
You gotta get ready for that.
I gotta ask now, I think is what I got.
Put it in early, put in the request early.
Probably should have asked John last week from Breeders' Cup. That's a bad job by me, but yeah, there you go. But no, I'm looking forward to that. I love the look, we're spoiled, right? We get to sleep in our own beds for Derby. Whenever things are at Keeneland, we get to sleep in our beds for Keeneland, that kind of thing. So anytime we can get that Breeders' Cup back here in the Bluegrass, it's
that was my favorite part of the 2022 Breeders' Cup, was the being able to just wake up, drive right up to Keeneland, see all the horses, drive right back. After doing that every day for a week, it was a little bit, but it was so nice having it here in Kentucky and just being able to know I can be back there pretty much every morning for like 2-3 weeks leading up to it.
All right. And as I'm sure you can see from my background, I am up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. I mentioned that earlier in the show as well. Want to welcome in personal friend of mine going on more than a half decade at this point, racing Rachel McLaughlin up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. You'll see her on the simulcast as part of the broadcast on Saturday. Look for me when you're here 11 to noon. We'll be doing the pre-race show down on the first floor. So when you come up here, come on by and say hi to me, say hi to Sean, do all the things up here on Saturday. But here is Rachel McLaughlin from up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. All right, back here on BloodHorse Monday with Racing Rachel up here at Horseshoe Indianapolis. Of course, the Indiana Derby this Saturday. We'll be back up here for that. You can follow me, by the way, Horse Racing Happy Hour, ESPN Louisville, all the things for the races on Saturday. If you happen to be up here, come say hi. We get a little stage on the first floor ahead of the races. Would love to answer any questions you might have, any handicapping sort of queries, etc. Look, many years we come up here and we talk about how good the Oaks field is. And then this year we get to talk about how good the Derby field is.
I said it so much this year too. I was like, man, I'm really excited for the Oaks field. And I am. There's some nice horses in there, but I think it definitely goes to the Indiana Derby this year. Really nice field. Super excited. We just ended up finishing the draw. Publisher ends up with post position 6. For Rasmussen, we got instant replay right to his outside.
Yep. Multiple stakes winner. Yep.
So super excited to see Cool Battle, Chunk of Gold.
Yeah, a couple Kentucky Derby alums.
Yep. Ethan's gonna wheel him back, so it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, out of the Ohio Derby, we get one out of the Matt Winn. We get several out of the Kentucky Derby. It turned out to be a really, really nice field. Even when we were talking yesterday, trying to figure this thing out, we really didn't know where this was going to land. Landed in a great spot.
Yeah, and I asked Eric, I was like, "Do you think because I'm trying to get footage for you guys, leading up to it, and I said, do you think Publisher's gonna be the favorite? And he's like, I don't know. He showed me the list and I was like, I think you're right. I don't know who's gonna be the favorite, but it's definitely a really nice field. Yeah,
now with instant replay in the field as well. Frankly, you get the winner of 3 of the last 5 of these. Asmussen hasn't won one, I think, since 2011. And then the rest of the field just trying to get in on that. And then on the Oak side, I mean, this is even for a shorter field, I feel like this is a nice field as well. You get a Clicquot who's frankly probably just now ready for stakes company, that kind of thing. You get a horse like Top who's going to be a local, a local favorite around here. This turned out to be a nice field too.
Yeah, we talked to Michelle about entering into that, and I was like, man, I really love that angle of the Indian. Lauer will enter a horse in the Derby or the Oaks randomly, and sometimes
we got Gorman this year.
Sometimes he's sweetened up.
Or Mosher this year. Excuse me.
The superfecta, but man, when Michelle told me she was going to put Top in, she thinks that she's bred. I can't remember his top side on to go long, and she's never gone. Yeah, mile and a 16th. So she'll definitely be a wild card in there and a long shot, but. I've taken the least. I do this every year. I focus so much on the Derby, I neglect the Oaks. But this Clicquot, is that how we're saying? Clicquot. Looks really tough as well. I mean, look at those speed figures, and it's going to be an exciting one. I'm working on the little graphics right now, and we're going to get it out as fast as we can.
8 stakes on the card on Saturday. 6 of them open, 2 Indy breds. I mean, we're talking. This is your big day, and it's your big day.
Yeah, it's literally.
We're already there, aren't we?
Yes. My phone, I'm not kidding. My phone started like literally at like 7:45. Someone called me. 8 o'clock. Someone called me. You shared your location with me to let me know when to let you in the door, and I still was late. It happens. So it's just there's so much going on. But yeah, it's a huge day. We've got not only amazing racing, we've got all kinds of free.
By the way, free to get in, free to park. Like just show up. I mean, honestly,
we've got the awning now with shade if it's hot, or if it rains, it's rain or shine. We have plenty of space for people to come inside, and we've got all the comfy furniture, and we're gonna have a hat contest, we're gonna have a handicapping contest, we're gonna have a cigar rolling station, which the boys always go to. We've got a $2,500 handicapping contest that's completely free. I mean, we've got like everything. Bring the kids. We're giving away the mega bets. We're $1,000 for the hat contest. So yeah, it's a really fun day. And we start at noon, and the Derby is the last race 12.
Don't forget, we are presented today by FanDuel. Download the app right now and bet today with FanDuel Racing, which you can bet right up here.
Yes, you can.
How about that? All right, Rachel, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you. Indiana Derby, July 5th, always that Saturday, that first Saturday after the July 4 holiday. We'll be doing that again this year. Looking forward to the coming weekend. You'll be up here outside here in Shelbyville, Indiana, with me at the Indiana Derby, the Indiana Oaks, the 8 stakes races that we'll see on the card here. And we got some late entries. Instant Replay is planning to make the trip up here.
Yeah, last I heard he wasn't.
So yesterday I heard he wasn't, and then today, and it's a stakes race with the Cox Barn. How about that? I think he'll be the favorite. I think it's probably not much of a question, frankly, coming out of 2 stakes wins. You've got the who do you think will be more the sentimental kind of play up here? Will it be the maiden and publisher, or more of like a Cole Battle and Alani Briley?
It'll be Cole Battle. Sentimental wise, yeah, it'll be Cole Battle, I think. And honestly, this is a race that I always thought would fit him, especially coming out of the Matt Wynn stakes against East Avenue and Burnham. Yeah, I mean, he's been holding his own against the top competition in this division. Yep. In my opinion, I would think he should be the favorite based off of past credentials. I don't know if that'll actually shape out that way, but I think he's probably the best horse going into this race for sure. Publisher, we'll see. This is kind of, I think, a big step for him, because as a maiden, we have to find out whether he's going to win a race or not. He always runs well against this competition, but we've seen it before where sometimes horses just don't have that final punch to get the win. So now coming out of the races in Arkansas, having the Kentucky Derby behind him, I think this is going to be a real telling point as to what we have in Publisher for the rest of the year.
I do love Ethan West. Chunk of gold. He's in form. We're going to run him. So he comes back out of the Ohio Derby. He's ready to go. I love that. So let's go. I'm excited to see him. Can he run second in another stakes race? Find out on Saturday. Some cool, interesting ones as well. Tip Top Thomas is making the trip from New York. Johnny V and Mike Smith in the Indiana Derby this year. Of course, Mike Smith, aboard publisher. Johnny V will be on Tip Top Thomas, who does come out of a really good allowance win at Belmont, going the 1-turn mile there. Did break his maiden at Saratoga as well. So it's really, frankly, this is shaping up to be a really nice field trip.
And I think that maiden win was against Sovereignty too. I think that was Sovereignty's debut, if I'm remembering correctly. I might be wrong. I got to go back and look, but if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head, I think that was the maiden race he ended up winning.
It is fun to say too. Brad Cox has won 3 of the last 5 Indiana Derbies. Todd Pletcher has never won an Indiana Derby.
So that's surprising.
That's at least a little surprising. Cool thing too on the Indiana Oaks side of things, by the way. Michelle Elliott's got one in here in Top. T-O-P. That's the horse's full name, Top. Okay.
Top.
Local, been sprinting, doing all the things. 2 women before her have already won the Indiana Oaks. And so she would try to add her name to a list already. And I guarantee you know one of them. And her name is Josie Carroll. How about that? So Josie Carroll picked it off here, as did Margaret Grimm. Actually, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd Oaks ever, something like that, at Hoosier Park. And so Michelle Elliott, if Top can get it home, that would be the local connections, Fernando de la Cruz, all the good things up here. If she can get that horse home in the grade 3 Indiana Oaks, she would become the 3rd female trainer to win the Indiana Oaks. Well, buddy, I will see you Saturday. Thanks for making the time today. How was the beach trip? We never got an update on that. What's going on?
The beach trip's next month. You're ahead of me here.
Oh my gosh!
Last week.
You just baseball games with Dad. Okay, did you? Okay. How was it watching the Reds beat up on your Yankees? How was that? Yeah, how was that?
We won't talk about that.
We're just celebrating right now.
Let's just say by the end of the game, I was wishing that I had stuck around to do the podcast. Let's just say that.
Yep, there you go. We are so glad you decided to stick around too. A reminder about BloodHorse Magazine. If you are watching at all, you can get on with the QR code at the bottom of the screen right there. Go ahead and subscribe to BloodHorse Magazine. It qualifies you for a bunch of other things that happen at bloodhorse.com. You can always sign up for the daily, completely free, sent to your mailbox, your inbox, I should say, your email every single day as well. Top left of the homepage there at bloodhorse.com. If you haven't checked out the webpage, what are you waiting for? Tons of information, all the sales, all the updates, the racing updates, guys like Sean, Byron King, etc., writing on the site there as well. So get in with our friends over at BloodHorse and bloodhorse.com. And of course, sign up for the magazine today. Get that beautiful thing on your coffee table. Well, he's Sean. I'm Louie. I will see you Saturday, my friend, up here. 8 stakes races. A Pharaoh 12 is going to be busy, my buddy.
Very busy. I'm going to be running all over the place.
Good enough. Well, we will catch up with you next week on BloodHorse Monday. We'll be into July, and we will have started at Saratoga as well. So we'll have tons of updates for you next week. For Sean Collins, my name is Louie Rabaut. This has been BloodHorse Monday.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.